You're listening to Keon Sports. This upcoming podcast is brought to you by SKN Biopharma. SKN Biopharma is a local business located in Avon, Ohio, who is now marketing and selling a revolutionary new hand sanitizer and surface protectant that is part of the solution to help fight this global epidemic. SKN Biopharma's hand sanitizer, which protects hands for up to 8 hours, and their surface protectant, which protects surfaces up to 90 days, are non-toxic and utilize revolutionary technology to kill pathogens of all types longer than previously thought possible. Their business has absolutely exploded, and their products are available right now at www.sknmicrosure.com. Protect yourself, protect your family, and protect your business with the best solution available on the planet. Up next on today's Keon Sports Podcast, WWE legend El Snow. Sit tight, put your feet up, and grab something to cold drink. Up next, El Snow.
Does everybody want? What does everybody need?
Welcome into the Keon Sports Podcast, a very special episode today with El Snow. You know him, you remember him, you love him, one of the most popular wrestlers of the Attitude Era and beyond. We're going to check in with him on everything, his days in ECW, Smoky Mountain, TNA. We're going to cover it all. Up next, El Snow. Welcome into the show. This is Vince McKee, your host. If you want to be a sponsor of the show like SKN Biopharma, email me, CoachVin14@yahoo.com. Over the last couple of weeks, we've had on some gigantic guests: Terry Runnels, Tito Santana, Scott Hudson, Ricky Morton, Dr. Death Tom Pritchard, Hector Guerrero, as recently as yesterday, Nikita Koloff. The guests get bigger and better as we go. Today's guest, one of my personal favorites, El Snow, one of really, in my mind, one of the most underrated wrestlers of all time, especially of that Attitude Era. Without any further ado, let's get into the phone now. Here is El Snow. On the hotline with us now, the SKN Biopharma hotline, is El Snow. El, welcome to the show.
Hello there. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. You know, actually, just happy to be coming out of this this pandemic era of being stuck in the house in the home studios. It's actually nice to go outside this weekend and get some home projects done. How have you been doing?
Doing well. Staying busy, trying to continue to produce TV, and in spite of the lockdown and everything, and just really trying to be as creative as possible to try and keep an audience entertained. Try to give them some kind of respite from all the aggravation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're in the same boat here, on the show, trying to think of daily topics to talk about sports-wise. So it's good today, and really the last couple of weeks talking with guys like, Nikita Koloff and Tom Pritchard, and really kind of dipping into pro wrestling. It's been a nice distraction from not having, the big three of baseball, basketball, and football. But like I said before we put you on, I am actually a personal fan of yours. I've followed your entire career, and I'm here I'm here from Ohio too. I'm up here in Cleveland, so about 4 hours north of you, I want to say.
Yeah. I grew up in Lima, which was probably about 3.5 hours north, about west of you guys, in north. So just south of Toledo, north of Dayton.
Absolutely. So I wanted to ask you too, as we get started here, why did you decide to pursue a career in professional wrestling? What got you involved and interested in trying it out?
I don't know. I just knew that I had to do it. I made the decision when I was 14 years old that was what I wanted to do, and that was it. I mean, I once I had made that decision, there was no going back. And people ask, and have asked, for years, why, what made you? And I'm like, I can't tell you. I don't know. I wish I did, but I've never been able to, completely figure it out. Just it was a passion of mine that I wanted to pursue, and I've been blessed to be able to do what I wanted to do for a living for almost 40 years now. So, been pretty fortunate, pretty lucky.
Yeah, not too many people could say that. It's a unique breed and group of people who have been able to follow a passion and become as successful as you are. And you spent a lot of time on the indies early on. This was long, long before the days of NXTs and these wrestling schools to the extreme that they are now. I mean, back, you obviously you train, and I get that, but you spent a lot of time on the indies, and then you made a real quick stop, your first stop in ECW. I haven't penciled in here. I remember it being around 1995. At that time, could you sense that ECW was building towards something bigger?
It was you could feel the vibe in the building, and you could tell that it was definitely it had an electricity about it, and I don't think that anybody quite anticipated that it would, continue to grow the way it did, but I mean, it did, and that came all down to, television access, which it always does, and the broader the television access and the more the reach, the greater the audience grew, and because it was the right thing at the right time, for the right reason, which is what always happens, and Paul was very fortunate because he had a lot of talent that already had a lot of experience and polish, but not a lot of national exposure, and but also had a following of people because of the tape trading and all that, because this was long before the days of the internet. That were hungry to see these people, and then for the rest of the audience, they were a brand new product. They were a brand new talent. They were somebody that they had never seen before. So it all worked together. It was a perfect storm.
Yeah, and we're gonna bounce back to that in a second. But at that same time, you were also wrestling, and this is I'll be honest with you, Al. This is the first time I saw you wrestle. You were doing some spots with SMW, which people know as Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And, for me, a kid who grew up, again, here in Cleveland, my family did not have a lot of money. My dad worked full-time, my mom was sick, and we did not have cable. So for us, I got my wrestling Saturday mornings, whatever WWF would put out with Superstars, sometimes Sunday mornings. But I got lucky because we had this station on our TV, and if you didn't have cable, you got this other station. And what would come in a couple times a week would be USWA Wrestling and also Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And we just happened to have that luck where I got to have, my wrestling fix in the middle of the week. And, SMW to me, Smoky Mountain and USWA, I loved it. I miss it. I thought both promotions were very underrated. But, however, this interview is not about me, it's about you. So my question is this. When you were with Smoky Mountain Wrestling, you did some tagging with a guy by the name of Glenn Jacobs. Well, everybody knows who Glenn Jacobs is. He went on to become mayor, but before that, obviously Kane and Isaac Yankem. So in SMW, did Glenn Jacobs stand out to you as the kind of guy with a lot of talent and potential, or at that point was it just too early to tell?
No, Glenn always stood out. I had met him before that in St. Louis, and Glenn stood out, and both for his talent, but also for his size and his look. He had all the tools to be successful in professional wrestling, and and clearly he went on to do it. You know what I mean? He went on to do exactly that. He became very, very successful. He's had a great career.
So you get a shot, with the WWF and the first time around, and this is a tough question for me to ask, and I don't want you to take it personal, but I need to do my job professionally, so I have to ask you this.
You can ask any question you want. The only dumb question is the one you don't ask.
All right, I'll take it then. Thank you. So you get a shot with the WWF, and in my humble opinion, they give you a couple no-chance gimmicks that, how the hell are they going to get over? One of them was Shinobi, and another one was the very ill-fated Leif Cassidy. They basically ask you to come in and fill that Shawn Michaels role with Marty Jannetty. I knew how talented you were. Like I said, I remember watching you in SMW and even a little bit in ECW. I knew your talent, and I'm like, why are they bringing this guy in to do this? For you personally, how frustrating was it? Because you weren't a rookie, you weren't a newbie, you were a guy who proved he could go.
Well, first off, the gimmicks are what you make of them. They're just trying to give you the most important aspect that a professional wrestler absolutely desperately needs, and that is a describable personality, something that people can relate to. That's the quintessential, most valuable thing a professional wrestler can develop. And, that was one of the things that had held me back for years, was that I didn't have that. You couldn't turn to your friends and family and go, hey, there's this guy, Al Snow, he's A, B, C, D, E. Each time that I did develop that, I was very successful, because it wasn't, I was still, though unfortunately, caught up in trying to sell what I did and not who I was and why I did it. And that held me back. But like most wrestlers, I pointed the finger at everybody else but myself. And with years and, hindsight and maturity, I've been able to look back and realize that, it was my fault, not other people's faults. And I was responsible for it. And, with the Avatar gimmick, knowing now what I know now, I could have done so much more with that and made it work, or at least given a better run with it. The Leaf Cassidy gimmick, it was tough because, rightfully so, Marty, I don't think, had his heart in it from the start, because, I don't think he felt that it was a good, respect for what he and Sean had done and their legacy with that. And I can't disagree with him. But we, so without him being totally in to it, it was ill-fated. It wasn't going to, it had its run, and then, Marty left, and then I was left again and at the time was feeling very frustrated. But, I think that turning that frustration around when I went back to ECW on loan, that was what really helped to get me over, because whenever I would talk to the head on doing the vignettes and things, that was me. That was my frustration. I was channeling that in those conversations and making sarcastic and smart-ass remarks, with the head. And that was the way I could get that out. And I think that's why it connected so well, is because people could tell that it was really who I was. I just turned the volume up on my frustration really loud.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, and you kind of segued perfectly into my next question. And I was going to say pretty much exactly that. You caught the biggest break of your early career after leaving the WWF that first time and headed back to ECW for a bit, which was now, at that point, on a much bigger scale. Like you said, TV has a lot to do with it. And pay-per-views and everything else, and the access. So I've always wondered this, and I just ordered your book last night. I can't wait to read it. Self-Help Life Lessons. Oh, God, I can't wait. Self-Help Life Lessons from the Bizarre Wrestling Career of Al Snow. Guys, check it out. I'm going to sink my teeth into it, hopefully by Friday of this week. I'm sure you talk about it in that book, but can you tell the listeners, if you don't mind, how did you come up with the head gimmick? Who came up with it? And why do you think it got over so doggone well?
Well, I came up with it because at the time, when I went back to ECW, I knew I had to go back there. I had to go somewhere, anywhere, and I had to get myself over. Make an audience want to see me, want to be me, want to be, connect with me. I had to, and I tell people all the time that, Vince McMahon does not make you a star. Paul Heyman doesn't make you a star. You do what you do, and then they see something and they capitalize on it. They, together with you, they capitalize on it and promote it, and you both make money. And that's how the entertainment business really works. So it's the onus 100% is on you to make yourself a star. And I went there specifically to do that. I mean, Paul had no real plans for me when he brought me in. It was kind of a, because he had a working agreement that we were all unaware of with WWE anyways. So, I went in there and I just felt like if you were the average person and you had seen me as Leaf Cassidy, then, anybody that was that happy had to be a little touched, a little crazy. And, as far as, the Al Snow gimmick, people who knew me of that had known that I've been wrestling for, I think at that time, probably 14 years or something. And, would know that somebody would be getting, at that point should be getting frustrated, and would understand that and could relate to it. And that, getting so frustrated that I'd have a nervous breakdown. So I started reading a book on abnormal psychology and case studies, and tried a bunch of different things to kind of demonstrate that I'd went crazy, and none of it really worked. It didn't communicate. It wasn't visual enough, and people couldn't understand it. And then one night I'd worked with the great Sasuke, and we were back in the back taking pictures for the Japanese magazines, and I saw a styrofoam head, and I thought, I remember this case study about a woman who had was a paranoid schizophrenic with transference disorder, meaning that the things that she heard voices from, she thought were crazy, not her. And I thought, well, that's perfect. I'll talk to this head, and I'll treat it as if it's crazy, not me. I'd used the styrofoam heads quite often. And then one night, Mikey Whipwreck and Spike Dudley had found a beautician's mannequin head that the fans had brought as a weapon for New Jack to use that night, and they gave it to me. And because I knew I had to get an actual real-looking head, and so they gave it to me, and that was it. I was like, this is fantastic, and I wrote "Help Me" on it backwards because the idea was that, to me, the head was crying for help, for somebody to save it from me, and I wrote "Help Me" on my forehead like the head had wrote it on me, and I never saw it or realized it because I was internally crying for help.
Right.
So, and then, I just interacted with it and treated it as if it was a real person, and, and took my frustrations out on it and argued with it all the time, and it worked, and the reason it worked, again, was because it's simply because it was really my voice. It wasn't fake. It was quite real, and they could tell, they could feel it. So, that's the most important thing that any wrestler can do. Every single, wrestler that's ever been successful to any degree is a wrestler that you can describe to your friends and family in a sentence or less. You can turn and, to your friends that, casually watch wrestling and just go, hey, man, you got to watch this show. There's this guy, he's A, B, C, D, E. And, in that description, you've caught their interest. They can relate to who they are. They understand what they're about, what they'll do to win, what they'll do not to lose, the whole 9 yards. And, developing that character, that gimmick, that persona is what allowed me to finally have, some success. And it was just unfortunate, that, I was still, again, I was focused on the wrong things, that I could have capitalized that much more on the opportunities that were given to me if I had just focused on the right things. So.
Well, if I could take off my, broadcast journalist hat for a second and put my fan hat back on for a minute, I just got to tell you, I thought, to me personally, that was one of the greatest gimmicks. I was about, not to make you feel old, but I want to say I was maybe 14 or 15 at the time, and I just thought the whole gimmick was amazing. I thought, man, this guy gets it, and it just was, and like you said, there's so much more into it, as you just explained, the vision behind it, really the reasoning behind it, and the psychologically behind it. That is really the thing to me that jumps out the most as a writer. I mean, it's pure genius. And I have to tell you that, not only as a journalist, but as a fan. So you finally get a chance now. You come back to the WWF, in the early summer of 98, and they're in their boom period now. I mean, Attitude Era is off and running. They've hit the ground. And there was 2 matches that you had. You had a bunch of matches. But there were two matches to me that stuck out and again told me as a fan, said, you know what, not only is this guy athletic, he's also intelligent. He's intelligent as hell because there's two matches that you had to me that, again, the ring psychology of these were tremendous. And here they are. And we'll see, you know, how much you could talk about each one because I would love to know what went on behind the scenes to plan these out. The first one, okay, and these are both in 99, the winter and summer of 1999. The first one is a Falls Count Anywhere match with Hardcore Holly at St. Valentine's Day Massacre, which ended up near the river, okay, in the middle of the wintertime, all the way out to the river. An amazing, amazing match. The second was later that year during the summer at SummerSlam, which I want to say was in Minnesota that year, Minneapolis, against the Big Boss Man, another Falls Count Anywhere match that ends up in a sports bar across the street. I thought both of those matches were done extremely well. Can you tell us a little bit about... Oh, you're welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about the ring psychology of that, the planning behind it, and how much freedom you had with both of your opponents to plan those out?
Well, what happened... It kind of happened because we started doing those hardcore matches for the hardcore title, and then the very first night that Road Dogg and I, we had wrestled... in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I think it was in December of that year. I don't know what year it was, but and they always they just would send an agent with me, and the agent would just follow me around, and I would just plan it all out in my head, and I would try to do things that I thought looked organic. And place things that looked like they made sense being there, as opposed to us just walking out with items. I thought it made it seem more like a real fight and brawl if we just happened to find stuff along the way. So I would plan out a route, and I'd communicate that to the agent, who would communicate it to the truck. But the first night in Worcester, it was kind of by accident, I think. Well, I mean, if I remember correctly, I'm not sure, but we didn't plan on going outside, I don't think. But we ended up going through the fire door, setting off the fire alarm, and then, that ended out in the snow. Yeah. And then after that, it just seemed like that was the MO. Like, that's what they wanted. They wanted just crazy, go anywhere type of brawls that would start in the ring and sometimes end, God knows where. So I would get to TV and they'd say, okay, you're wrestling so-and-so tonight, and, go to it. And I would just go off in the afternoon, and I'd start, figuring things out and trying to escalate things. Because you always want to start, you always have to start with your once upon a time with the story, and then let it build to a culmination, and have those events get bigger and bigger and bigger, as you go. And, that was the case with, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. I was out in the afternoon. It was February, and it was an afternoon. And at the time, it was warm. It was down in Memphis, and it was warm out. I was walking around without a jacket. I thought, oh, that's, and I saw the Mississippi River, and I was like, oh, why don't we'll fight out here? And, luckily, I threw an old tire that was sitting by the bank. I threw it into the water right near the shore. I think saved my life, because once we got in the water, I didn't realize just how cold it was, and it took my breath away, and two, how deep it was and how fast it was moving. Because one of us could have drowned. And then Bob gets so worked up and gets in the zone. He kept dunking my head under the water and pulling me back up and dunking me under the water. He was going to drown me. So I had to literally grab a hold of the tire and fight for my life to get away from him. And people still to this day remember that match. And the same goes, with Boss Man and Road Dogg, and we were allowed to fight across the street and into the bar, and I laid it out and put things where I thought they organically would be and would look like they just naturally fit, and and then build up to that moment, that culmination of where things just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you take it home. So they were a lot of fun. I mean, they hurt. I mean, it was a lot of stuff was when I look back, I'm like, boy, that was kind of dumb because one or both of us could get hurt a lot, and luckily we were able to get banged up and beat up a lot, but we didn't get injured. So it was I was very fortunate to have that run.
Okay, so I'm not going to ask you to peel back kayfabe too much on this, and I'm not going to ask any insider secrets, but something I'm dying to know from that Boss Man match that I have watched, no joke, man, at least probably 75 times. My question to this is this. How much prep time legally, does the WWE have to give these establishments to let them know, and, the people in the bar, they would have to know before they go in there? And I guess the reason why I'm asking this is, and I'm telling fans
just put a release up on the door saying that if you enter this establishment, that your likeness will be filmed, and that's it.
Wow, okay.
You can't tell people ahead of time stuff, because if you do, then it ruins the reactions and the responses and things like that. You can't do that.
That's incredible. I mean, I don't mean to laugh. I'm sorry. I just think that's incredible. Okay. It's incredible because there's a spot during your match where this guy, this random fan, jumps in front of the camera, and you see, one of the Pitbull's security guards just grab him and he yank his ass out of there so quick. And I'm like, man, I'm thinking, how stupid is this guy? He's lucky he didn't get tackled. One of you guys could have hit him.
Yeah. And luckily, I mean, for us, nobody got directly involved at any point in time. If they had, I mean, we'd have just shut them down. But, and that would have just added to the match. So, to the chaos of the match. That was what they wanted, these matches that just seemed like they were absolute anarchy and chaos.
Well, they were. And like I said, I think it's a true testament to your abilities, your intelligence of ring reasoning and all of it, because, for you to have two outlandish gimmick matches like that, and both of them be as well done as they were, just, again, I take my hat off to you. I got a few questions left on my own, and then a couple silly fan ones here at the end. But
sure. Mm-hmm.
Here's the other thing, too, that I thought was incredible about your career, and it meant a lot to me as a fan of yours that you had this kind of respect. How honored were you to be chosen to be a judge of the original Tough Enough series?
Very much so. I still to this day am very grateful for it. I think it was one of the most enjoyable things that I've done in wrestling, and I was thrilled to be a part of it. Somebody posted, from Tough Enough 3 where Matt Capitelli went out and stole all the tires off my car to rib me back. It was such an awesome experience to get me be with those kids and be a part of helping to develop them and give them an opportunity to pursue their dreams and and develop those relationships. It was great. I mean, I was, like I said, it's one of the things I'm probably the most proud of with my career, and it gave me the most exposure. I was pretty much a household name for quite a while, thanks to MTV, and because I, reached an even broader audience than just with wrestling.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, I'll say as a fan at the time and obviously today as well, but, I remember watching that and, you became invested in the coaches and you became invested in the competitors. It got to the point at the very end when Maven was chosen, over, I think, I want to say, Christopher Nowinski and Josh Matthews, I believe. And, I remember, crying, being, ridiculously emotional and be like, why the hell am I crying? This is a reality show. But then it hit me hey, these guys have worked their tails off to train these young kids, and now these young kids have taken it this seriously. This is not a joke. This is not some BS reality show. This is real life. And, and to me, I think really that's why it hit home so hard. And I wanted to ask you, too, and kind of this is really kind of radical left turn from the Tough Enough, but, like you said, speaking of real emotions and really getting behind the characters and the gimmicks and the performers, that was, to me, that was why the original ECW was so beloved by so many. Why do you think, in the summer, I want to say the summer of 2006, when the WWE tried to bring it back under their brand, why did they have to water it down so badly, and why do you think it failed so badly?
Well, the reason they had to water it down was because, Vince is always trying to market to a general audience. The success of ECW and also its downfall was that it was a very niche product. It was marketed to a niche audience, and you can't survive doing that. You've got to try to. It's no different than making a comic book movie. There is a large portion of the audience that have read these comic books, that know the origin stories, they know the characters, they know the backstory, they get it. But if you make a movie that's only going to appeal to just them, then you're not going to make the money back that it takes to make the movie, and you're not going to make a profit. I mean, let's face it, that's why they're doing it, is they want to make a profit. That's called business. But if you make a movie that, you walk that line that appeals to the diehard comic book fan that knows these characters, stays true to it with just enough of a spin to where a general audience go, I get it. All right, now I understand why this guy's a hero and why I want to cheer for him. And now how I connect with him and why I want to be like him. That's the most important thing. Then now you have a product that will make money. And at the end of the day, that's what it's called, the wrestling business, for a reason. Because you're trying to market to an audience to capture them and capture their emotions, to motivate them to want to pay to see the performances on a continuous basis, that then motivate them to now want to also buy the merchandise and all of that goes along with it, so that you really can be a profitable business. That's ultimately at the end of the day. And that's why it's so important that as a wrestler, you sell who you are and why you're doing it, because it's the only two things that the audience really wants to invest in and believe in. They don't want to invest or believe in what you do. They want to invest in who you are and why you're doing it. They want to really truly believe that you are the person that you've sold them. That, people want to really believe that I'm crazy, that I, legitimately was insane, and before Tough Enough, everybody believed it. They quite honestly thought that I was crazy, and that's why, I try to explain that kayfabe is not about protecting the business. It has nothing to do with it. Kayfabe was just a signal word that you would mention nonchalantly in a sentence to let people know that there were people around that you didn't want to make aware of what was going on. Simple as that. It's no different than like a magic show. Hey, we need to make sure we don't show how the trick's done, because otherwise they won't pay to see it. But kayfabe was really a respect for yourself, for what you did, and for your audience, so that they never felt like they paid to get something that they didn't get, which was who you were. So to that end, like when I was really over with the head, I'd go to dinner with it. And, I'd go to dinner with them. I would take them, into restaurants and get a table for us and sit there and talk to them in front of the public and, order 2 meals and drinks and, and breakfast, the same thing, go to a gym, because if I legitimately was like that, well, that's what I would do, And the main reason I did it was, and it was not easy. It was a lot, there were a lot of uncomfortable moments. But, the main reason I did it was because if you and your family were out and you saw me talking to that head, having dinner, and then flipped through the channels and saw me again, you were like, hey, there's that guy. He look at him, he's really crazy. And then if you believe in who I am, you believe in anything I do. It's all real to you now. Because you're completely convinced that I am who I am. So now me fighting across the street and into a bar makes complete sense. Me wrestling myself is completely normal, and because of the fact that being insane gave me creatively a freedom that no one else had. I could do things and get away with it and be entertaining. I wasn't a comedy wrestler like people think. All I was just an entertaining wrestler. That was insane. That was it.
That's incredible. I never heard that story about the two breakfasts, and that gives me a chance real quick to pitch your book again, because something tells me stories like that are going to be in this book galore. Guys, go check it out. I ordered mine last night on Amazon. Self-help, life lessons from the bizarre wrestling career of Al Snow. We have 2 professional questions left for you, and then the 2 fan questions. So as you probably could already tell, some of the favorite parts of your career to me were the coaching aspects of it all. And you were in TNA for a long time. I mean, almost a decade you were there. And to me, again, the part that jumped out the most wasn't really anything, you did wrestler-wise as much as coach-wise. So my personal favorite part of your entire TNA run was when you were a part of the gut check segment. How legitimate was that? And did you have actual say if that guy was going to come under contract, or was all that decided beforehand?
It was actually quite legitimate. The idea behind it was to give people who had been wrestling an opportunity to have a national stage. And I produced a lot of that because I would have them, the talent would submit a video and pictures, and I would go through and, pick somebody who had a really good story, somebody had a really good backstory, because it was important. Because, again, we're not selling what we do. It's important that we're selling who and why. And I need to, in that 10-minute amount of time, capture you as the audience with this person's story and make you care whether or not they actually win a contract or not, or make you hope they don't. I've got to encapsulate all that in a very short amount of time. So it was very important to, find people that had some kind of story, and had spent years and had never really gotten a national opportunity. And, and the thing was, you guys can go back and watch the tapes, and you will watch my face, because we would sit down and we'd all discuss, and then and the idea was that it was supposed to be very few people would get an actual contract, because if you gave out too many, it would seem like it was too easy. But the problem was a lot of things just didn't go to plan. So, like, even the very first one, where we had Alex Silva, who came in, that I had met in OVW, had a ton of talent, great looking kid. Ric Flair was going to be the first judge. Myself, Bruce Pritchard, and Ric Flair. Ric Flair all day. No, I'm going to say no. It's no. He was dead set against this kid getting a contract because he just didn't think it was the right way to do it. For whatever reason, he was being a dick and was just no. So, kid wrestles the match, and we agreed, because you had to have a minimum of 2 yeses to get a contract.
Right.
So, Bruce was going to say no, I was going to say yes, and then Rick, no doubt, I'm just going to say no, which he did. And then you had an opportunity to do a promo, and that was your 30 seconds to last ditch effort. It was like a kick out.
Yep.
Was what it was. So, Alex cuts this promo, and Rick goes, "Kid, you won me over. It's a yes." And both Bruce and I looked at each other like, what? So the kid gets a contract, because he took the opportunity and made the most of it and convinced Flair with that promo to say yes. And it did not go according to plan. Joey Ryan, that literally was going to get no, yes, no, 2 no's. And he, Taz was involved. Taz tried to, steal the spotlight a little bit, tried to get himself over, and Joey didn't back down. So that literally, Joey created his own opportunity. He got himself over to the point where that inspired Bischoff, and literally got him a spot on the roster. And those are prime examples of how, you are put in that ring, and then it's up to you to make the most of that opportunity when you're in there. And, another good example, too, Candice LeRae. Joey had, at the time, I think, was in a relationship with her or something. He contacted me, hey, she'd like to get on the gut check. I go, okay, have her send me pictures. And let me tell you, this, in 38 years, this is the only person who has asked for advice and then actually went and did it. Only person. There's maybe one other one, but the number is very low. Okay. she sends in her pictures, sends in a backstory, and calls me. Well, what do you think? And I said, I have to be honest with you. I said, the pictures, you just look like some, you don't look like a star. You look like some lowly indie girl. I said, you're an attractive girl, but you don't look glamorous. You don't look like a star. And I said, and your backstory is just dull. I said, I can't take this to Eric and Bruce and pitch you being on TV and have them agree that you're going to get the chance. I said, I need you to send me different photos where you really look glamorous and look like a star. And I said, and I need a better backstory. I need, emotion from you. So she literally the very next day had a photo shoot and sent me these professional photos that she had done. She looked amazing. She looked like a different person, Mm-hmm. And I said, make sure you get really, get different gear, look like a star, carry yourself like a star. Gave me a whole different backstory. I took it to Bruce and Eric. They're like, yeah, let's put it on TV, and she got that opportunity. But the only reason she did was because she took, asked advice and then went out and did it. She actually went and did it. And I can't tell you the number of people that will go, hey, how can I do this? Or how can I make it? Or, what's it going to take to succeed? And then I'm very direct. People will tell you I'm very direct and I'm very blunt, and I'm very honest. And, I don't BS people. And a lot of people don't like to hear what I have to say. And I tell people all the time that if you don't like it, don't ask me. Because I'm fine with, I don't judge people. You go do whatever you want to do. But if you ask me my advice, and I tell you my opinion, don't be offended, because if I actually give it to you, or if I speak to you, it's because I care. Because if I didn't care, I'd be completely apathetic, and, I just let you stand there and flounder. It wouldn't bother me. But if I do go out of my way to do it, it's not because I don't like you, and I'm saying it's because I'm telling you something you don't hear. That's why I tell people I am 100% responsible for what I say, but I am in no way, shape, or form responsible for what you comprehend or understand.
Yeah, I mean, two real quick things. One, on a very small scale, I know 100% what you're talking about. I've in my life, okay, I've been blessed. I've been able to write 9 books. So I have 9 published books. You go to the bookstore, they're going to be on the shelf. And, you wrote a book yourself. You know how hard that is and what it takes to get it done. And, unlike you, I didn't have any kind of celebrity background when I started doing this. So, to get a book published, it's damn hard. Okay. So in the course of, let's say, the last decade or whatnot, since my first book was published, I've had dozens, no joke, like Mankind's dozens and dozens of fans. I've had dozens of people ask me, hey, tell me how to get a book published. What do I need to do? And I will sit with them. I will give them a full chart, every step it takes from A to Z, how hard it is. And like you said, I'm 100% blunt because I'm not going to give anybody any kind of false hope. They need to know what it takes. And I've done this now, dozens of people, nobody's followed up on it. Nobody. And you think to yourself, here I am, I'm taking this time to explain to somebody something, how you do something, and then they don't. I don't know if people want to look for the easy way out or what, but it is crazy, and like I said, I guess it does take a special person to follow through on something. Number 2, interesting about Candice LeRae, one of the first big breaks I got in my own career was interviewing Johnny Gargano, who is now her husband, because he wrestled indie here in Cleveland, Ohio. I knew that kid had it years ago. So really cool to see how they've both turned out. My last professional question for you, and then we got the 2 fan ones here. But really, the one I came up with, my last one here, why did you decide to be a part of and then purchase Ohio Valley Wrestling?
Well, it's going to take a couple seconds to explain that.
Okay.
When it all kind of just fell together to purchase OVW. I had no intentions. I wasn't expecting to do it in any manner. It literally just came out of nowhere. I had I got frustrated because, and I had spent a lot of time working on the weekends, going around, doing independent shows.
Sure.
And it bothered me a lot, that, I would see a lot of people, and not just from an aesthetic standpoint, and please understand, and again, I'm responsible for what I say. This is an aesthetic business. It is a, cosmetic business.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to look like a bodybuilder. I've never have. But I've looked like I'm a professional athlete who makes his living in a competitive combat situation. That's what we're selling. And I've always been in ring condition out of respect for myself and my opponent. And going around the independents, there are a multitude of people that are in no way, shape, or form, one, properly trained in any manner, and two, they are in no way in shape or form in ring condition, and it's dangerous, because ultimately at the end of the day, when you go in that ring, there is a chance, there are odds that you are going to suffer an injury or a life-altering injury, or you could die. That's the truth. And the rate of people that are dying because of accidents that are happening within the ring over the last few years is growing exponentially. Just carelessness and again, lack of conditioning and proper training. And that summer, a young man out in Oklahoma City, which of course Oklahoma is a state that is governed by a wrestling commission. He was on a wrestling show, poorly trained, with somebody else poorly trained, in poor shape, took a spine buster, cracked the back of his head, had edema, brain swelling, was in a coma for several days, and then they had to pull the plug. Kid died. So my wife is a licensed masseuse. So in any state in the union, if you want to be a licensed masseuse, or if you want to be a licensed beautician or a licensed barber, or you want to be a licensed mortician, you have to go to a state-accredited school. You have to be taught by a state-accredited trainer. You have to complete a certain number of state-required hours. Then you have to complete a certain number of residency hours of actual on-the-job training, supervised. And then before you can even pay to take a test to get a license as that vocation, as a professional wrestler in every state that a commission is governed, all you have to do is pay some money and get a physical, sports physical, and you're a licensed professional wrestler. I find it insulting. I find it absurd. Back in the day when I was broke into the business, we monitored and policed ourselves. And so few people were willing to train you because they were held accountable for who they brought into the business. The heat would go on them. Mm-hmm. But now there is such a proliferation of training schools out there that is what's led to the very degradation of the very art and the business of professional wrestling. That anybody can just simply walk in and be free to be a part of it and be indoctrinated into the wrestling business and then call themselves a professional, which they are no way, shape, or form anything close to it. And I find that insulting. So I went first to the Maryland State Commission. They just blew me off. I spoke to the Oklahoma City Commission. They blew me off because ultimately, at the end of the day, they want the money. They want the license money. And if they do institute standards, then that's going to limit the number of people that are going to apply, which then means that they don't get as much. But what they don't see is they just see the short-term picture. They don't see the long-term picture, which is that if you create those standards, then you raise the bar, you raise the level of the people that now enter into it, and then the performances on the shows are that much better, which now gives an audience what they really paid to see, which now increases the profit for the promoters that allows them to run more shows more frequently because they have larger audiences, which increase the tax revenue that, of course, the promoters have to pay on every show. And ultimately, it all comes around. But that short-term hit, they don't want to take. And I went and addressed the board of the Kentucky Wrestling Boxing Commission personally, directly, physically. And that was when I met my best friend and business partner, Chad Miller. He was, at the time, he was the executive director of the Kentucky Boxing Wrestling Commission. We met, we got to speaking. One thing led to another. Had a conversation with Danny Davis, who had owned and operated OVW and created it.
Sure.
And he was ready to retire, and Chad resigned from being the executive director of the Boxing Wrestling Commission. We went in together, and we bought OVW, and it's been a 2-year process of, we've become the world's only state-accredited trade school by the Office of Proprietary Education in Kentucky. They oversee all the trade schools, all the secondary education, colleges, universities, that thing. And so we have to have accredited trainers. We have to have, coursework, hours. So when people come here, I mean, they can just train to be a wrestler if they want, but because as a trade school, we teach them not only how to be a wrestler. I thought it was very important to give them skills that when, not if, their career in the ring ends, that if through an injury or just attrition, they would have skills that they could still be an asset somewhere for some company. Like, for me, I've been able to transition and become a trainer and, a producer through my experience, and also a commentator. Well, not everybody does that. And, but if you come and you actually attend a trade school where you can learn lighting, cameras, sound, production, etc., and you get that experience along with the training in the ring. Not only are you a better performer in the ring because you now understand and relate and know what they're looking for to better perform, but now you have skills that if you get hurt, you can pick up a camera, you can produce vignettes, you can help produce, segments on the show, you can write, you know how to format a television show, things of that nature. You can, live event management, social media management, financial management. We teach all of that to give these people skills over and above just being a professional wrestler. They can now be in entertainment or broadcasting. And, 2 prime examples of it that work made me realize that it works and it's valuable. Jessie Whitney, who's Tommaso Ciampa's wife, both of them wonderful people. Mm-hmm. She was a contestant on Tough Enough 2. She got cut. She came back in Tough Enough 3 as an intern for MTV. She ended up getting hired by WWE as a backstage producer, spent several years there learning her skills and all of that, got experience, and then became a television producer for, major networks all around the world and had a great career. And then James Long, a kid who came here as wrestled as Paradise years ago as part of OVW, taught himself production, lighting, sound, editing, incredibly talented. I ended up helping him get hired by Impact Wrestling, TNA, and he was part of their production crew for several years. They loved him. And then he got hired by WWE, and he's now a major producer for their television with NXT, and has a whole brand new career, and is that much better as a producer of wrestling because he was in the ring and knows what the feel and the sense and what you're selling is. So, it can be done. And it's my it's my effort. I want to raise the bar. I want to make wrestling better. I want to make it, and I don't want to make it easy for people to get in. Because I firmly believe that if you want a life that others don't live, you have to be willing to do things that others don't do. And if you're not, then don't fool yourself and don't insult the very business that you aspire to get into. I'll just play wrestler. And I get people have different situations, and you can only pursue it on the weekends or whatever. That's no insult. But you're going to be an actual professional. You're going to look the part, you're going to carry yourself as the part, and you're going to be able to physically go in that ring and be able to perform at a level that you can protect yourself and your opponent. Simple as that. And if that's not what you want, to actually carry yourself with pride, then don't bother doing it. It's that simple. You'll find somebody who's willing to take your money, and and has got some little ring set up in a barn or in a storage unit or something. They'll be glad to show you, hey, this is how you protect yourself when you land and fall, and here's a couple holes, and here's how you hit the ropes, and hey, here's what we think is a high spot. Now, there you go. Take off, man. Go do your thing. And you may get hurt. You may not. You may end up hurting somebody. You may not. But you're not going to be an asset to the wrestling business. You're going to continue to degrade the very thing that you claim you love to do. And if you don't want to really invest time, money, and effort in yourself, then don't waste your time, money, and effort or someone else's, or more importantly, the most important person is, do not waste the time, money, and effort of the audience that paid to see you. Do not insult them.
Wow. That's the most incredible thing. Yeah, I mean, I'm speechless. Everything you just said is 100% accurate. As someone who has followed the business for 30 years, somebody who's in broadcasting now, guys, please listen to everything Elle just said. Rewind it, listen to it twice. Every word that just came out of his mouth is 100% accurate to an extreme. And yeah, I mean, I'm not even going to try to repeat what you said because, again, anybody, I don't care if it's professional wrestling or what your profession is, everything he just said, all those morals, all those principles, all those values go into anything if you want to be successful at life. 110%. So
if you want something bad enough, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. It's that simple. Don't lie to yourself. We all lie to everybody every day. It's just part of life. I mean, we do. You're not a saint. Everyone lies to everyone every day. But the one person you should never lie to is you. Just be brutally honest. What are your motivations? What is the reason you really want to do this? Or whatever it is you want to do or interact with or behave with. Just be honest with yourself. Don't lie. Just, this is who I am, and this is what I want to do, and this is what I get out of it. Simple as that. And then realize that if it's not for you, then don't do it. Don't blame other people. Don't point the finger, because the one person, the only person you can control, because the biggest myth that everyone is told throughout their whole life, and really it's manifesting itself today in society, is that so-and-so makes you feel something. No one makes you feel anything, okay? No one gives you emotions. People do actions, and then your interpretation of their actions make you feel things. And you can't control other people. The only person you can control is you. Simple as that. So stop pointing the finger at everybody else and start pointing it at yourself, and take control of yourself so you can take control of your life and live the life you want to live, instead of always being a victim to everyone else's actions.
Yeah, just incredible. They need to book you to talk at high school. Seriously, man, I'm pumped up. I'm ready to run through a wall after this conversation. They need to put you on high school graduations and college graduations. Young kids, seriously, man, young kids need to hear this. I'm 38 years old, and I've been preaching this for years. And again, until you do it yourself and believe in yourself and bust your ass and stop looking for a break or a shortcut or a handout, bust your ass. That's when you're gonna find out what you're really made of. So this has been a great interview. We have the 2 fan questions left. They're both really short, kind of silly, but definitely awesome. This was amazing. Thank you. So 2 fan questions here. And the first one's actually something I would have asked anyways, even if the fans didn't ask it, because I'm dying to know. So you touched on it a lot just now about being in physical ring shape, but we've seen pictures of you, we've seen videos of you since you've retired from WWE and TNA. Your physical presence, the way they worded it was, how'd you get to be so jacked? I mean, that's their words.
I don't think I am, but I appreciate the fact that they think I am. Here's what I did. For a lot of years, I trained the wrong way, because when I first broke into wrestling and everything, I didn't have anybody to work out with. I didn't nobody to direct me. So I learned a lot. I was all self-taught, and I've used every type of. I was a big buy muscle and fitness magazines and bodybuilding magazines, and I've done every type of routine there is, just you name it. And what it was is that I stumbled upon a website. It was called the Golden Age of Strongmen. It was an awesome website. They've changed it. You can't download the training manuals. This website was a training. It was where these strongmen from the late 1800s and professional wrestlers from the late 1800s, the early 1900s on, they all made training manuals, and they published them decades, a century ago now, and I started looking at pictures of some of these guys, and one of them, if people want to Google it, look up George Hackenschmidt.
Oh, yeah.
He's a professional wrestler.
Yep.
The guy was incredible shape, and I was like, holy cow. Like, this was during the time they didn't even know what calories were, let alone protein or carbs, and they didn't have steroids, at that time. And I'm like, how did this guy become so developed? And I started reading all these training manuals, and I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to start to train like they do. And I did quite a few years ago, and that's what I've been doing ever since. Is I've just been, training like that. Most of the stuff I do is compound movements. Very little, because I'm not. I train different than a bodybuilder will, because a bodybuilder is training to sculpt themselves and literally chisel themselves into a particular look. I'm now training myself just, for the physical ability. And the biggest thing that made the difference was doing those compound movements and working my legs through squats and deadlifts and compound movements using my legs, because the biggest thing I took away was they said that, in one of the books it said several of them said, if you can only train, 1 or 2 days a week, train your legs, train your back, and train your hands. Those were the 3 most important things to train. And the more I trained my legs, the more the rest of me started to develop. And it was just, it's been a lot of, I've trained since I was 16 and started getting bored with it, and same routine. And now it's fun because it's always a challenge, and they're, different techniques, and I'm always finding, old equipment that the old strongmen used to use that I'm like, God, this thing looks weird, because I'll carry stuff into a gym a lot of times, and and I look like I'm doing a circus act, because I train with, maces that I have, and I have a 50-pound sledge, and I've got a 65-pound mace and a 20-pound mace, and I've got light Indian clubs, and then I've got heavy clubs that I train with. And, people say, how much do you bench? I'm like, I don't know. I haven't done a bench press in probably 10 years. I don't, whatever amount of time I've been doing this, because I just do push-ups. And if I do any kind of presses, I just use dumbbells and on a bench. That's it. Because back in the day, that was all they had. They didn't have benches. So, I'll do them on the floor. If I do anything, and in real life, there's how many opportunities do you have to just lay flat and then push up? Unless you're underneath a car changing oil and it drops on you. Yeah. That's it's not a real functional move. So, I just train functionally, and it's really made a big difference. So, and started to watch what I eat and all that too. That makes a big difference too.
Yeah. So, in an interview of all intelligent questions, I had to save the silliest, stupidest one for last. This has been great, though. Thank you so much. And this is this is a question I did not come up with. I just want, that's a disclaimer here. But this is, again, man, thank you so much. Last question here from one of our fans. This is so silly. Was Pepper really your dog?
No, thank God. Pepper, with that whole storyline, when they first came to me with it, I insisted, and quite honestly, and I've told this story several times, I insisted that we have trained animals. Right out of the gate, when Vince Russo first came to have the conversation with me, I'm like, I'm cool with it. I'm fine with it, but you need to give me a trained animal, because if you don't give me a trained animal, I don't know how I'm going to interact with it. So they ended up calling a veterinarian clinic in Detroit, and got a list of owners of Chihuahuas, and then Pepper showed up. And I was like, okay, listen, I'll make this work. But I'm telling you, when we get to the end of the line, when we get to the culmination where we do the Kennel and Hell from Hell match, you need, and I can't emphasize this enough, we need trained animals, all from the same training center, all where you can, you've seen trainers where they do verbal commands and these dogs just do exactly. I said, so where the trainers can stand outside the cage and literally tell these dogs, okay, attack. You know what I mean? We need this. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. So week after week, every week at TV, hey, how's that coming? Oh, yeah. And I get to Charlotte, North Carolina the day of, and I walk in and I notice there's like 10 dogs with 10 different owners. And I'm like, oh, shit.
Yep.
What the hell is going on? And I, come out, I talk to them, and it turns out that one dog had some obedience training. So you've literally made the crux of the story all about these animals, which even in porn, people know you don't work with animals or children. Children are animals. You just don't. They're always going to upstage you. So we end up, where we've sold the idea that we're going to be in a cage inside a cell, and inside the cell, outside of the cage, are going to be these Rottweilers that are going to be circling the cage like vicious sharks. Well, that got nothing like that, because the owners had to come out with their dogs on their leashes inside the cell with them, and the dogs were urinating, defecating, and fornicating to the point where we couldn't use them at all in the match or show them on TV.
Yep.
So, that was great. That was awesome.
I'm glad you cleared that up, because I remember watching that as a fan, thinking to myself, how the hell is this the same guy who just had unbelievable brawls with the Boss Man and Road Dogg and Hardcore Holly? Like, how the hell did this? I'm saying, there's no way.
Yeah, and everybody for some reason, and I don't know why, but everybody wants to hold me responsible for this shit show. And Ray, God bless his heart, I loved him dearly. He never gets mentioned, and it's like we could have both went in that ring and set our hair on fire, and no one would have cared, because we had literally built the whole thing about the dogs, and now the people are watching the dogs not because they're vicious and they're a part of the show, because they're their own show, because they're literally pissing and shitting and fornicating to the point to where they had to the owners had to exchange puppy rights. They had to exchange phone numbers for the puppy rights backstage. And it's like, really? I mean, quite honestly.
Yeah, this is one of the best interviews of all time, and I hate that we have to end it on that note. But definitely, man, thank you so much. And let me thank you as a fan first and foremost for just being entertaining. I was able to get through high school and college, and I never had to turn to drugs or anything crazy. I mean, my drug was wrestling. I loved wrestling, so that means a lot to me that we had people like you and Mick Foley and so many others who sacrificed their body like you guys did, sacrificed time away from your family, which is something I don't think a lot of people understand. And just
it's not a sacrifice, it really isn't. I mean, you make the choice, you make the decision, and you live a life that others don't live. I mean, and there are advantages and there are disadvantages, and you accept that. I've never looked at it as a sacrifice. I know too many of the wrestlers walk around and, they act like it's a cross to bear or something. And it's like, look, nobody drove to your house, put a gun to your head, and asked you to become a professional wrestler. Nothing in life comes for free. Nothing. Everything's going to cost you something. Every decision you make is going to cost you something. Time, money, or emotion. It's going to cost something. But at the same time, the trade-offs were that that time away from my family gave me opportunities to give my family experiences that they never would have had if I hadn't had that time away. And let's be honest, and I've had this conversation with other people. For years, I was ridden with guilt because, we all sold the, hey, let's have the white picket fence family, and dad goes to work and comes home every evening. And I didn't live that life. So people were like, oh, you're never home. And I had this conversation with some people that worked at AutoZone at one time. And I said, well, how often do you work? And they're like, we work 6 days a week. I go, 6 days a week? How long a day? 12-hour days. I go, I'm home more than you.
Yeah.
You're off 1 day a week. And I said, I guarantee you the 2.5 or 1.5 days I'm home every week. I said, I actually make the point to make up for the time that I'm away. I said, you probably, because you're so tired, and so, and it's such a routine for you. You get home, you eat dinner, you sit and watch TV for 2 or 3 hours, you go to bed. You barely speak to anybody. You don't interact with anybody. You don't spend any real time because you got to shut down and from being on the job for 12 hours. And then you get up the next morning and rinse and repeat till you have 1 day off. And then you spend that day either lounging around or, hanging out with yourself because you're burned out. I said, I don't do that. So, it's not the typical life. But then it doesn't give you the same typical advantages either. You get an upside. Like I said, I've been able to give my kids experiences and take them places and do things with them and have them see things that they never would have gotten a chance to see and do. So there's a trade-off to it. It's not a sacrifice. It was a decision, and I've never regretted it. Not once. Not in 38 years, I've never regretted it. There have been times I get frustrated and I want to choke somebody until they shit their pants, but I've never regretted it.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for everything you've said today. It speaks volumes for me. Again, a small business owner like myself here with Keon Sports Media Group. Just to listen to you talk was very, very motivational. Thank you so much. And just want to let everybody know at home one more time. Go ahead, check it out. His book, you pick it up on Amazon like I did last night. Self-Help, Life Lessons from the Bizarre Wrestling Career of Al Snow. Al, I want to thank you again and wish you the best of luck moving forward. Hopefully talk to you soon. And also, before I forget, real quick, if there's anybody from OVW that wants to come on, they're more than welcome. Please pass along my information.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. I'll have send some guys your way.
Yeah, and we will promote whatever you need.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. You have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
You take care.
You as well. Thank you. So that was Al Snow. You guys remember him very, very well. One of the greatest to ever do it. Check that out again. Also check out Ohio Valley Wrestling. For Keon Sports, this has been Vince McKee. Everybody have a great day.